This is a one-of-a-kind piece, and I'm using both stainless steel here and sterling. And then this wonderful stone, actually, it's Alaskan coral, which also people look at it and they think it's a stick or a piece of wood, and it actually is coral. What's fun about this is a new piece, a fairly new piece. What's fun about it is that how it's connected is not typical. It is kind of something I figured out from a prior piece that I made with the coral, and it has this little silver holder, basically like clasping around it, but it's not set like a bezel. And a bezel is typically flat, and you have a stone that sits in it, and then it's hammered around the stone. And you can do a bezel with coral, but it would like sit flush all the way around. In this case, this engineering created like a little flap around it, and then there's a hole drilled between the two pieces, and the jump ring that holds them together, the metal is pressed around the stone enough that it holds it in place. It gives it a different effect, and kind of more like it's swinging. To me, it's more like it's swinging from the chainmail. I just like the effect. I like putting together different shapes with the stone, creating a different feeling for the piece. So it's fun making one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry that you're not going to find anywhere else, and that speak to me, because as an artist we like to create things that fit that way, that are one-of-a-kind, which means that the one-of-a-kind person is going to speak to them, and then that means it's their piece. That means it's like part of them. That's a really beautiful part of being a jeweler. It's so intimate, it's so personal, it's so special for that person. And that's when it's really precious. This is a one-of-a-kind piece. This is the Crown of Enlightenment. It was made during the pandemic. It's kind of a very different kind of crown. Of course, you want the focus to be in the front of the crown, of course. But using the chainmail to make it meant that I had to have a structure that it would fit over so that it wouldn't flop down, because this is so flexible, the material is so flexible, it would normally flop down. Little engineering feat here. I really focused on adding a lot of different details to it, because it's a crown, it can have a lot, right? We can just go overboard with a crown, anything and everything. So it has malachite, it has kyanite. Then the little castings from the catalpa pod, little golden pearls. I like that it kind of float. When you wear this, it's going to jingle across the side of your head a little bit. I think this is onyx, and that's a fire agate. So yeah, a little bit different. It's fun to wear a crown, and why shouldn't we all crown ourselves when we feel like it? I mean, it gives you permission to be that glorious person that you are. And even if you didn't wear it, maybe seeing it gives you that feeling that I am glorious. I am that person, that individual that's powerful. Because we all are powerful. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a push or a movement into some other direction. But I hope that my work actually empowers people to feel that, to really own it, to really own how powerful each person is. to really be yourself. This is some of my earlier work. This is a wall sculpture. These are actually electroformed copper. And electroforming is a pretty unusual technique, but it's kind of like how they do babies' shoes, where they metal plate them. It's a form of building up layers and layers of plating. So this initially started as a wax, and then I put a electrical conductive paint on the wax, and then it's in a bath. I know this is way too complicated. It sits in a bath, and an electrode is turned on, electricity is turned on, an electrode is turned on. And the copper particles, there's also a copper plate in there, and those copper particles come off the copper and go onto the electrically conductive paint. So this is like layers and layers of tiny little copper particles. It looks heavy, it looks thick, but if I turned it to the side, you can see that it is a very thin sheet. It weighs hardly anything. But so this is one of my earlier pieces. It's kind of collage-like here because I have the copper, I have these hawthorns, and there's a metal plate in the center. This is part of a series called The Agony of Loss. And it was just a really difficult time for me. I was going through a divorce. So, you know, as again, everybody puts their energy into their art. It's sort of my way of working through the emotions. I mean, that's how they come through. It's a powerful piece. And it's something that's kind of just a marker of that time. So I have pieces like this. I have pieces of jewelry that I made where I've done all the chainmail one ring at a time and put them together, including making all the rings, including all of this, you know, just all of that, which is really, really time consuming. But I was much younger. I was much younger, and you know, I think, you know, you just go through processes where you find things out of what works and what doesn't work, and you need to explore more because you're kind of learning what the fabric and the material can do for you, and how does it feel in your hands, and how does it form. It's kind of necessary to have like a long span of time in some ways to get to the point where you can create like a big dress. I mean, all of the techniques and information I used to make jewelry actually went into the construction of one of my dresses, because those dresses are actually made sometimes using jewelry techniques. That's why they're involved. That's why they take the time that they do. They're not going to be a fast piece. Making a bigger piece is always a bit of a challenge, and it's more interesting for me. And I kind of like working in the two different scales. The jewelry can be faster. I can see the result quicker. The bigger pieces are like sitting somewhere in their stage, in their amorphosis, kind of, and they're not going to be finished that fast. And that's just like a lot of things we do in life. Some things are fast, some things are slow. It's a building, and we're building to do different things all the time. Every day something new is happening, something is being created, something is forming. That's my process. My body is in with my art. The whole thing, the whole picture, all of it. They're not separate to me. My art is a part of who I am.